la la la.
How did your time as a stripper influence you to create the Dancer's Resource?
So throughout my entire dancing career, there's just always been the same notion of once you're a dancer, you don't have a say. Managers take advantage of their positions and staff take advantage of their positions. As a dancer, your job security is not as secure and solid as a staff member would be. They take advantage of them sexually, emotionally. Even to get hired at a club, some managers will leverage that and demand sexual favors or whatever it may be. As a woman, as a young woman coming into that, exposed to that, feeling like you have no choice, in return, your self-worth, you're affected in so many more aspects that you don't know. And coming into that environment, you think that's how it is, and it's not. But you become numb to it, so you accept it. The strip club itself is just built on the dynamic of like keeping a cattle type of like farm thing where you're keeping majority kind of under control. And with it, the majority being women and then the men having control, it allowed them to leverage aspects that became unfair, unsafe, and it wasn't right. So my name is Crissa Parker and I founded the Dancer's Resource. The Dancer's Resource is like Yelp for strippers, essentially. It allows the dancers to rate and review the clubs they've worked at based off their experience. You can rate them according to safety, the staff, the way they treat black girls, the way they treat thicker women, older women, tatted women, any type of demographic where you would have a little bit more difficulty getting hired at the door. This allows you to know what you're getting into before you even have to bother.
How old were you when you first started dancing? Was it for survival or was it for extra income?
I first started dancing when I was 19 years old, and I just didn't feel like I had a foundation, like a secure foundation. I was in and out of my car. I hadn't wanted to start dancing for years. I stayed in that situation because I was scared of the stigma from dancing. So I started dancing, and then within like a month, my whole life was different. When I first came up with the app, I was a dancer. There was a situation where I just felt like the club didn't have my back. I was like sick of what I was going through. A customer had just stolen money from me. The club did not have my back. I was at Denny's and I just pulled out a napkin and started drawing the app. I had a vision for how I wanted it.
Were you into tech during your time as a dancer, or did dancing fully influence your pathway to tech?
If it wasn't for dancing, I would not be in tech. So when I first started building the app, I knew I needed to have coders, and I didn't know any. So we opened a intern program. I listed that a tech company was looking for interns, a summer program, and they would be essential in building a mobile app. At the time, Cal State Fullerton was the nearest college with a tech program that was workable with. So we just incorporated the company and I started taking on interns. We definitely took the bootstrap route. We've never had a large fund injection. We haven't had a large investment. When I say bootstrap, I mean dancing during the night and meetings during the day and then getting back to the club by like 5 to pay your developers. It was just all done by dancing. Aside from a mobile app, we are a organization, we are a community, I would prefer to say, of women that are in the dancing environment, the adult industry. Pretty much any woman that has leveraged her aesthetic appeal can relate and have something to take away from the Dancer's Resource. The objective is to just kind of, well, in addition to destigmatizing it, it's to allow women that aren't even in the industry to kind of, it allows them to relate to other dancers, to other women, which I think in return helps destigmatize the industry in itself. The stigma itself is really isolating as a dancer because you're embarrassed. You feel like you're gonna get judged right away. You honestly don't want to tell people what you do for work, so in return, you're not really getting as close to somebody as you probably would. Whether you're a dancer or not, in the industry or not, working woman, whatever you want to call it or not, we all face the same issues. We all deal with the same insecurities, with the same self-doubts, and I think that's something that everybody can relate to.
Why do you find that it's important for sex workers to have a community where they can go and coalesce?
I think it's important for sex workers to have community because they're easy targets without it. And I think not having community prior has made them an easy target. Accounts aimed towards sex work for dancers or anything like that are important because it's representation. With SESTA, FOSTA, all of this, voices have been lost and they were already the minority. Having community helps set the tone and set the bar for what we're going to allow. If you know a woman's being taken advantage of by one man and he tries to take advantage of you, he's not going to do that in front of two women. They isolate. So that isolation, without that isolation, you have protection, essentially. Some of the conditions that women in the strip club industry endure are, you have to maintain a specific weight, or otherwise it's more difficult to get work. For Black women, it's difficult to get hired. Every club seems to have a cap. Everything between ageism, colorism, just going through the ins and outs of being a dancer. You don't really have a say once you're hired or even just to get hired. It's management. It's management taking advantage of women, taking advantage of their positions, which was a big reason for why we even came up with the app, was to hold these managers accountable. The club is going to want you to stay in line. So if you don't ask questions, you go with the flow, whether it's in the best interest of the dancer or not. You have women that put themselves in these situations that aren't even good for them to be considered a favorite. Favoritism in the club is dangerous in a way because the women aren't really taking into account what they're doing in order to stay where they're at. And where they're at isn't even that safe, I think it allows women to be taken advantage of on a sexual level, emotional, because they're at the mercy of their manager or the consumer, the customer, whoever it may be. Prior to the Dancers Resource, the clubs were not answering to anything or anyone. So by us collectively coming together and holding them accountable, we can change the way things are done. The Dancers Resource has contributed to the power dynamic shifting by taking the curtain away from the unknown. The app reviews are done by the dancers. Each review is done based off of the dancer's personal experience of the club. The way they treat Black dancers, if you're a Black dancer, or Asian dancers, your body type, the cleanliness of the club, the staff of the club, the consumers, all of it. All of it matters because all of it affects your money. Everything that you would need to know to make the correct decision on where you want to work, the app provides. All these women know what they're getting, what to expect, who to ask for, who not to ask for, who to avoid. This allows dancers to know exactly what they're getting into without having to do the difficult legwork that they would probably have to do otherwise. And I think that this allows managers to know they're going to be put out there. Everything that they were doing prior to the Dancers Resource is no longer done in secrecy because we give dancers a voice. We're making the industry safer for women. We're bringing more rights to women in the industry. We're giving them a larger voice. We're giving them options. Rights for sex workers are the same as rights for women. It goes hand in hand. When it comes to women's rights, dancers and women of the adult industry are often left out. I think it's easy to do. Even with Me Too, I always felt like it was like Me Too, but not you. Not strippers, not women that leverage their aesthetic to get to where they want. And I think that's something that needs to be done. I think when you're a dancer, there's always one specific moment when you remember that okay, this is not as safe of a job as others. The Dancers Resource is pulling back the veil of what clubs would hide behind and what they capitalize off of to take advantage of dancers. The bigger the Dancers Resource grows, our impact becomes a little bit more obvious We live in a day where social media runs everything, and it's a way to add a social aspect of accountability. I remember when we added Puerto Rico, receiving emails where dancers were just thankful that they were gonna have a voice for their club, where there was situations already going on that dancers don't feel safe talking about on social media or amongst each other. This platform allows that individual to be aired out and the dancers stay safe while exposing them. I started the Dancers Resource in 2017. I knew that in its entirety, it was going to be an app. That was the entire objective, was a mobile app. I knew in order for it to succeed, it had to be recognized on a social level and accepted by dancers. So I came up with the Instagram in 2017 and we launched the app in 2019. The type of content that we post on the Dancers Resource is everything from manifestations, affirmations, to how to finesse. Specific things that we post for dancers themselves are, we allow dancers to rate and review the clubs that they've worked at. So we'll post a specific section, a state or like a specific city that all the girls can go and like give their experience of working in the clubs in that area on that post. So you click on the post and you're able to see hundreds of women's experience based in one club. Women that look different, talk different, everything, and like you're able to see their collective experience of that area.
Have you ever felt worried about drawing girls into the industry?
Yes, definitely. I've had the concern of drawing girls, younger girls, into the industry. It's very easy to be blindsided by like the glam of it. There's good sides and there's bad sides to this industry. You're able to make money quick. It's fast money. It's not always easy money, but it's fast. And I think that we show that. We show like the opportunity. We show that dancers need to, what their advantages are. Some of the bad sides of the industry would include anything from being sexually assaulted, which is nothing light, being ripped off by customers, taken advantage of by managers. That's just in the club. Outside of the club, which is a big part of being a dancer, it's very isolating. I've been accused of glamorizing the industry, but I'm not going to allow that to take away from what needs to be put out there. One of the reasons I was apprehensive about even starting the company was I did not want it to be a gateway for young women to think that they could just escape. But I think in order to counteract that, we do a good job of representing the fact that this is not, some women use it as a forever thing, but it is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable career. If you can come in, use it as as a stepping stone to get to where you need to be or to even get ahead. And our goal is to give women the tools that they need in order to do that, or at least to flourish and stay as safe as they can in the industry.
Why did you choose to not associate your image with the Dancers Resource?
When I first started the Dancers Resource, I made a solid decision that I just would not be on the forefront and I would keep myself in the background. I didn't want to take away anything from the mission. The company itself is so much larger than one person, and with social media, specifically Instagram, which is where we kind of started, being so visually driven with photos, it's easy to get lost on who's doing what versus what's happening. And that was something I just didn't want to lose focus on. And in all honesty, I was a little bit scared to put myself out there as a dancer. And then once we started growing, I realized that there was just no space for one person. It's not like a self-serving thing. It's bigger than that, you know?
How did dancing change your life?
Dancing saved my life. Dancing absolutely saved my life. Growing up, I've always been kind of a wild child. I didn't feel like college was an option for me, and not going to school, I was just kind of like cut off. I felt like I was doing everything on my own. I think that when it comes to dancing, you're only going to be as successful as your self-discipline. As many times as you can tell yourself no, it's so important. Like, all of these things go into being successful in dancing just like they would go into any other industry or any other job. But it definitely saved my life. Having the opportunity to make as much money as I was capable of making was amazing to me. Everything revolves around you in terms of you are your own limit. That's it. Any other job before that, my limit was my boss and what the rules were. And with dancing, you learn that not only are you your own limit when it comes to income, but you're your own limit in so many other avenues. I think the Dancers Resource has showed dancers the amount of power they have by uniting. There's so much power in numbers. And when you have a universal platform that allows a club to be put out there and all of the women rate and review it and show and hold them accountable, I think it changes the dynamic of the industry itself.
What would your closing quote be?
Download the app, search the Dancers Resource in your app store, and sign up for the dressing room.